Games, board games. We might be talking about board games, but we're not gonna shout. I am here. Here's with me is the person known as Zoe.
Zoe.
We're going to be talking about circus skills and board games. We'll be talking about people. We'll share some names. We'll be talking about things we do and things we love. And we'll follow some tangents and talk about a lot of other stuff. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good what time it is, wherever you
Hiya.
are. 10 a.m. is UK time. Time for Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And today is episode 998, and it's all about meeting the wonderful Zoe Clarke, who I had the
Yeah.
pleasure of meeting very briefly at a Gamers Gaming Getaway. I say very briefly, I mean, we had a couple of meetings and we played a few games together, but now I feel like we've got a bit of a longer chat, like an half an hour to kind of
Yeah.
properly get together and get to know what each other is about. So, how are you today, and what would you like people to know about you straight off the bat?
Okay, so I'm Zoe. I've been playing board games like 12 years or so, and D&D and that sort of thing for since the 80s. Yeah, so me and my friend have started a company to help the local community via board games and circus skills.
And that is Dice and Balls, which I will share in the comments for anyone who it should also be in the video description. But it's a really cool thing. What sparked that idea? I mean, is it just, hey, we love this, we love that, let's put the two together? Was it always
That's
inevitable?
basically it, because I mean both board games and circus skills, they can be used to sort of like help people. They can bring people out of their shell. With board games, people who struggle socially, you sit around a table and you've literally got rules there to sort of like how the interaction's going to go, and everybody's in the spotlight. Nobody's sort of like sitting out, left out, or anything. So yeah, we kind of feel that board games is brilliant for sort of like people who are feeling socially isolated for whatever reason. And the circus skills, it just lets people, no matter what challenges they face in their life, just do amazing things. They can spin plates, they can walk on stilts, they can do things they can feel proud of, you know.
Mm-mm-mm.
So yeah, so we just thought combining the two and sort of like helping the community and everything would be an amazing thing to do. Just giving
And
something back.
what does that actually involve? I mean, if people come to one of your board game events, can they expect like a free meets or high person?
We don't actually combine them at the same time, but I mean, certainly we're looking at getting new premises at the moment, and there's a huge space outside the front of the one we're looking at. So we will be doing sort of like doing stilt walking and juggling and all that sort of thing in that space out there. So they can they'll come see a bit of a show and then come in and see the board games. So yeah, that's so it will be combined in that respect.
And there's Phire having a wee bit of a juggle.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
I'm going to take a step back and chat about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights. Recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights. So, everyone out there, what have you been up to over the past day, over the past couple of days? Is there something that's happened to you? Is there something that you're proud that you've managed to do? So please let us know. What I got up to was after bits of time at the Here for Games convention, I had a lovely wander around seeing these fallow deer, which I learned is a type of deer as
Oh.
opposed to red deer. And they were fairly close, like it's a fence, so like they can't get to you, you can't get to them, but they're in this like giant enclosure. It's almost like a and yeah, it's amazing. And then I was just laying on the grass with these deer literally about 10 meters away. They were clearly a wee bit cautious, all turned their bums to me, maybe ready to scarper. And then I just lay down trying to, take stock of the world and everything. And then they became a little bit more comfortable. Some of them were sitting on the ground, some turned to face me. And then when I finally properly got up, because of my sudden movement, they all ran about 30 meters away. It was like a bird taking off, that sudden acceleration. Have you seen any wildlife recently?
I go out. I go out a lot walking with the dog, and we went to a colliery, an ex colliery recently, and just firstly, sort of like being in a place that was like probably 20 years ago was sort of like an industrial site with trucks and everything, and now it's just completely taken over by nature. It blows me away every time I go there. But there were buzzards flying around, and the really amazing thing though was we came across these little tiny flowers, sort of like no pinpricks, and just sort of like, I don't know, just that sort of like miniature nature just sort of like just completely blew me away.
There's something wonderful about being in touch with things and just being able to observe. It's almost like people watching, but for different species. I mean, it's exactly like that.
Yeah, definitely. And sort of just thinking what's going on in their lives, what they're thinking about, what's important to them, and how it's so. Although we're sharing the same planet with them, their priorities are completely different to ours, and their view on life is completely different to ours. And just sort of like trying to sort of get inside their minds a little bit is very interesting, I think.
Yeah, I mean, people watching, it's kind of got that same aspect of what's going on with this person, what's happening. But then I saw this pond, and later on in the evening, I went past the deer again. They were a bit further away, but then I wandered around this pond like maybe 3 or 4 times, and there's a few families of tiny little ducklings. I mean, sometimes I think they were a wee bit timid, but I'm a bit bigger than them, so I can totally understand that. And I think I could take on the talking about.
I don't know. Some of the geese on the local pond, they've got attitude. I don't think I'd like to take them on.
But it was lovely to see all these creatures and just be wandering around. The other, just seeing, the nature in London. There are parks, but I don't quite get the opportunity to see big animals like that in the same way necessarily. The other highlight was that I played a couple of games. This one's called Hansa Teutonica. Have you heard of this?
No, I've not seen that one.
So in Hansa Teutonica, which I took a photo and I said that I was going to berate Adam and Dan on the internet. So you can see that I've got gone all the way around the board, basically. Red is up at the top, and then blue and yellow markers are on the bottom left corner. Wait, let me take that so you can see the big difference in points. So the way that this works is you take turns doing some number of actions. By default, you've got 2 actions, and you'll be generally placing cubes onto the little houses along the road. Once you've completely filled one entire road, so no one else can be there, you can remove all of them and then move one of them into one of the neighboring cities, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
So you're building up the roads and dominating the roads in order to then place one of your little workers into a city. The alternative thing that you can do is if you dominate a road where there's a yellow banner, you can remove all of them to then power up yourself to upgrade so that now you get extra actions. Or maybe you're able to access different colors of houses. Or maybe you increase your end game scoring possibilities. Or maybe you improve the ability to generate new cubes to put on the board, because that's also something you have to do. And there's also actions where you can move yourself around if you've been displaced, or you can displace other people and say, okay, I'm going in here and I place one, I sacrifice one, and you move that, but then you also get a bonus thing. So it feels a little bit annoying, but at the
Yeah.
same time, at least you get something out of it.
Uh-huh.
And it's a really interesting, deep strategic game.
That's wonderful. I love the artwork on that. That is amazing.
Mm-mm. It's got this kind of medieval look to it,
Yeah.
which has that kind of Eurogame style, but actually done well. This is
Yeah.
not the careless, angry white man glaring at you from the cover.
No,
But
that's
the
beautiful.
other thing that I played, which I sadly don't have a photo of, is Bermuda Pirates, where you're
Mhm.
literally moving little boats around the board with your finger.
Yeah.
And this is for 7 or more, so a little bit of a different level of
Yeah.
complexity. And underneath the board, you've got actual bits of metal embedded into the cardboard. And in the boat, there's a magnet. So as you're moving your boats around, occasionally, it suddenly got attracted.
Oh
And
my
it's got those
gosh.
moments of surprise, and you've got to try to navigate your boat and try to remember where these hidden whirlpools are. And it's all about that memory. And there's different ways to set it up so you can
Yeah.
randomize where the bits of metal go, if you know what
Oh
I mean.
wow.
And it's really got that intense moment of joy. And yeah, just even before I read the rules, a couple of people were like, "Oh, this is clearly how you play," and we were already having fun with it. And then
Yeah.
myself and Dan played, and we just every time the boat capsized, it was like, and you get that sudden moment of delight.
Excellent, excellent.
So
I mean, that's what really makes a game for me. First of all, it looks pretty. I love pretty games,
mm-mm.
and secondly, it's got interesting mechanics. And I mean, if it's got hexes, then so much the better. But those two things are my main thing.
I mean, this is
We've been
quite
playing.
a. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
I was going to say this is quite a range of games, but what is your kind of speed? Which of those two games sounds more exciting to you, or can you just not choose?
I would go for both of them. I really would,
Mm-mm.
because I mean the first one is I just love the artwork on it, and the second one, it just sounds like real fun. It's just sort of like the sort of thing you could sort of like. I mean, it's very unusual to have a game that you can play that with that many people for a start,
Mm-mm.
and secondly, that sort of like just sort of. I can imagine a lot of laughing happening during that game. A lot of laughing, and that's what it's all
100%.
about. It's all about the social thing. It's all about getting together with your friends and having fun.
Sorry, I interrupted you. What are some of your own recent highlights?
So we've been playing. I'm going to struggle with the pronunciation of this, but it's Teotihuacan.
Oh, Teotihuacan, yes.
That's it. Yep. The pyramid building game,
Okay.
and yeah, I just love that game. I love it so much. Again, interesting mechanics with the pyramid, and not last time, the time before, I managed to actually get round the board twice, to get round the victory point score twice, so I nearly lapped the last player. So that was, yeah, I was really pleased about that. But then I came last time, so
So it's figuratively swings and roundabouts. I
that's
mean, do
it.
you feel like you just picked a better strategy? Are you getting to know the game a bit better?
Well, the thing is that with that game, you can randomize the sort of like the resources and everything else. So the strategy that you used last time will not work with all the boards placed in different places. So it's a different game each time you play it, basically. And no, it's
So basically, you feel like your strategy suited this particular layout better.
yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah, and that's the way it works sometimes, isn't it? In everything.
Absolutely. I mean, in life as well, sometimes you pick the best strategy, but it's about, is your strategy good for this situation? And
That's
sometimes there's a healthy dose of luck as well.
yeah,
I mean, both
definitely.
in games and in life. Let's not be
Yeah,
blind to the fact that our successes are definitely due to a lot of chaos, even if
yeah,
there's no actual luck. I mean, in Hansa Teutonica, actually, you do get little tokens occasionally that adds a little bit of luck, but it's primarily all from the players around the board. But
Yes.
I mean, my success was down to maybe Adam trying something odd, or might have been due to me going first, coincided well with me picking a strategy that worked well with that. And no one can predict everything.
That's
So
it. You can wake up in the morning and you've got a pretty good idea how your day's going to go, but you don't know exactly how it's going to go. Anything could happen during that day, for good or bad, and it's just how you get on with it.
and beyond that, would you be willing to tell us like what else has been going on in your life recently? What is a typical day in the life like for Zoe Clarke?
Oh, it's pretty chaotic. I mean, I'm in the process of fostering and adopting a teenager. So my other kids, they've all grown up and left home, but so I'm starting again with a teenager. So it's all pretty chaotic, and we've just started homeschooling him as well because he was not getting on at school at all. So we started homeschooling him. So what, combined with work and combined with starting up this new business and everything, it's pretty full on. But to be honest, I'm just loving life at the moment. I'm loving it so much.
I think you said that exact phrase when we were starting up, and I'm genuinely so happy for you because that is the most important thing, to be relishing the opportunity to live. I mean, to paraphrase the Eels, if you're scared to die, you'd better not be scared to live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just
Oh, what is a brilliant thing? Brilliant thing? What's a little thing which is brilliant?
I think a brilliant thing is how music can bring out all your emotions. It can make you laugh, it can make you nostalgic, it can make you cry, and just putting together a few notes can bring out all these emotions in people.
Mm. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, something that seems so simple. I mean, whether it's visual, you see a color, or whether it's audible and you hear, some sort of noise, the terms, the quality of it. There's so much that goes into what is essentially just a waveform. And, the pitch, like, and then once you've got more than one note, then like that melody, how it repeats or doesn't repeat, or the variance within it, there's so much intricacy. And I can absolutely understand quite often when I'm having a shower and I'm getting up in the morning, I put on Lady Bree. And
Mhm.
that's an album which starts off, ladies and gentlemen, introducing me. And like that sort of self assurance and positivity. And then it carries on into like exciting you and telling you to keep going for it, making a move, enjoying life, and then finishing off by saying that you're beautiful. It's a fantastic, I would say, album. Some people would quibble and say it's an EP because it's not long enough. Anyway, so
Semantics.
it's a fantastic collection of songs. Making a Move by Lady Bree, and I absolutely recommend that to everyone. And by the same token, sometimes something to relax me, but then help me focus. Maybe that's Vox Ray or something else. Are there musicians that you're listening to quite a bit of recently? Are there albums that you would recommend?
I don't really do albums. I go by individual songs. I mean, my son, he's the one who's like introduced me to sort of like a large proportion of my musical taste, because his music is his life. But songs like from people like the Lumineers, they
Mm,
again, it's not only the sort of like the songs themselves, it's what it brings back to me. It's sort of like the first time I heard this song, I was traveling with my son to the garden centre type of thing, and just sort of when I hear the first few notes of that, it just sort of brings back memories and feelings and so forth. So yeah, so Lumineers, I was lucky enough to see them live, and that was incredible. And no, I think, but I pick a mix with songs. I pick a mix definitely. I go all the way from sort of like the countryest of country to the metalist of metal, you know.
Amazing. I mean, I've been listening to a wee bit of Ellie King, which is kind of a bit country. I guess it's soft. It's not like the really American style of country, and you could argue that it's kind of verging on rock, but definitely I enjoyed that. And then I love the thing of Spotify where it's, oh, here's some other artists that you might enjoy. And I always enjoy listening to an album a couple of times, because then I feel like I've gotten to know that artist a wee bit, at least, to have the decent taste. But let's move on to Questionably Quick Questions. Is the next section. It's not an interrogation, it's just a Questionably Quick Question section. So, Questionably Quick Questions. The first thing I want to ask is meeples or minis?
Meeples.
What's your favourite colour to play?
Black.
Books or podcasts?
Books.
And what's the last one you read?
It was Cerulean Sea.
Cerulean Sea. Nice.
Yeah.
And who would you recommend that to, if anyone?
Everybody. All the people. I always love it so much.
Wow. Could you describe it in 30 seconds?
It is about a civil servant who is in charge of sort of like overseeing schools for magical kids. And he goes to this particular one, and it's about the relationship between him and the headmaster and all the kids, and it's I suppose you describe it as cozy fantasy, but it's I mean I was reading it, and I was also listening to it on Audible when I walked the dog and everything, and it's the type of book that when you're sort of like listening to it on Audible, you laugh out loud in public, and it made me gasp at one point with sort of like at the end, and it's got a lot of LGBT representation, and it is just it's just gorgeous. I just love it so much. It's not a long book, but it's wonderful.
So it's the kind of thing that if you really got into it, you could finish the whole thing in an evening, it sounds like.
Yeah, quite probably. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and just feel good about it. Just feel good about sort of, and it's relaxing and
talking about nice. Really getting into things and reading them in an evening. Would you say that you binge stuff when you get into stuff? Do you hyper focus, or do you just kind of do a bit of that and then come back to it every so often and pace yourself?
I'm the sort of person who really focuses on stuff. I tend to. I have a lot of interests, but they're sequential. It's so it might be sort of like I might be sort of like on a world building kick, or I might be on a photography kick or whatever, and I get really into it, and that's what I do in all my spare time.
Yeah, I can totally understand that, because sometimes, especially with skills, if you keep doing them repeatedly, then you can develop them a little bit faster, almost faster than if you go twice a week to pole dancing, then you'll probably improve more than twice as fast as if you only did it once a week, just because of that regularity. And you'll certainly improve more than 8 times as fast as if you only went once every 4 weeks, because if you're only going once every few weeks, then you'll forget stuff. You won't build up that muscle memory.
It's starting again from scratch.
So, beyond board games and circus skills, you mentioned photography, but what are some of your other passions that you've had in the past?
Oh, let's think. I was very much into like 3D modeling at one point. I used to love that. Um, I I love dancing. I'm not particularly good at it, but I love dancing. I'm very much a dance like nobody's watching type person. So, um,
Do you
uh,
do structured dance, like formal dance, whether that's
no,
salsa or so you're just kind of, hey,
it's just free form.
hello?
um,
Oh, sorry, I lost you just
regularly
for a second.
Okay, we regularly go to LARP things and things like that. Yeah, so it comes and goes. I mean, the world building thing is something that sort of like that stayed with me since I was like a teenager. So that's something that sort of like keeps coming in and out of my life. But then something else might grab my attention for sort of like a few months, and then I don't think about it again. And
So just to clarify, by world building, do you mean imagining something for a whole that could be used for a whole series of novels, or an
yeah,
RPG
or a
campaign, or
D&D
a LARP, or
game,
whatever?
or just for fun sometimes. Just sort of like, wouldn't it be fun if this particular country existed and it was ruled like this, and it was sort of they had this sort of these types of leaders, and just sort of exploring it a bit, you know, sort
Having
of.
those flights of fantasy and allowing yourself space to explore the what if.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah, and again, it can be useful because I mean, I've throughout my life, I've had periods where I've been sort of like I've not dealt with things very well, sort of like personally. And it's just it can be sometimes nice to have somewhere where you can go to and just sort of like just de-stress a little bit, you know, sort of just somewhere you can go in your mind to sort of like just to calm down a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's escapism at its most extreme is obviously kind of a dangerous thing because we
Yeah,
need to return to the real world sometimes. But I think that allowing ourselves moments to escape and forget about what's going on here and then just focus on this imaginary world, maybe it's whether it's even a set of rules that have
yeah.
built up to be a board game, or whether it's, hey, for this moment, I'm going to work on this skill, which is frankly completely useless, but that's part of the joy of it. That I'm going to do
It's
this or
bringing me
say this
pleasure.
or
It's
whatever.
self-care.
What is self care to you? Is it just pleasure? Because, I mean, there's a sense of you can be decadent and actually then suffer future consequences for that, of course.
No, self-care for me is um just taking time to sort of like sit back and sort of like look inside a little bit. But it's also I I kind of feel my best when I'm sort of like helping others, you know, which is a bit of a double-edged sword sometimes, but sort of like just being there for others and sort of like being supportive for others that need it as well is something I I kind of feel that's kind of like my purpose, you know.
I totally get that, and I totally empathize with it. Years ago, I mean, I've gone through depression a few times. I'm currently on prescription medicine for it. But one thing that I was told is it's important to be mindful that as humans, we need achievements and connections and enjoyment. And whilst helping others, like that brings definitely a connection, and it definitely brings a sense of achievement of saying, hey, um, this is something that, like, if I'm a tiny thing, like if I'm going out and then we over back to see my previous ex-housemates, McCall and Chris, And I don't always do it, but if I feel like I've got a bit of energy, they treat me to a bit of dinner and then we play some games together and then I might do the dishes because they, maybe McCall's done dinner and then it's like, well, thank you very much, I'll wash up. And that, even though it's a minor achievement, it is an achievement to say, hey, I cleaned all this up and I've contributed something. And then it's a connection because it's like, okay, thank you very much. And that itself is fostering the connection. And
Yeah.
is it enjoyable? Well, that's arguable, but I think that there are moments when, you know what, there is a bit of meditation that can happen when hey, this is what I should be doing. And you have that sense of certainty. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because when you're just doing everything for yourself, sometimes it's like, what do I even want? What is actually good for me? But when you're helping others, it's like, this is actually what they've told me that they need, and I'm doing this. So having that assurance and confidence and focus can be a lovely thing.
Yeah, and I think as well is that even just sort of like making people aware that
Mm.
if they need to talk, if they need to, even if they just need to sit in silence with somebody, that you're there, you're available. Just let them know that there's some, because if you're going through depression or you're going through sort of like hard times or other, it can be very lonely.
Mm-mm.
And I think if you sort of like make yourself available to people, like it can help alleviate that and help sort of like lift them up a little bit to know there's somebody out there that cares.
100%. The last questionably quick question.
Mhm.
Well, one thing that I'd like to ask is: would you rather be a pigeon for a day or a shark for a day?
um, I think a pigeon. I like pigeons. I mean, I know pigeons get a bad rep, but I like pigeons. I think pigeons are great, and I love seeing them as I walk down. But um, I kind of feel that flying is a whole lot cooler than swimming.
Well, new question: would you rather be a pigeon for a day or a shark for a month?
Oh, I think I'm going to have to go for the shark this time. There'll be a lot more to explore. There'll be a lot more to experience if you're something for a month.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I'd go for the shark for that one.
Um, and my final question is: what's your earliest memory that you're willing to share? And at this point, I'll remind everyone out there that if you're watching live, please do feel free to comment, ask questions from like follow. So yes, Zoe Clarke, your first ever memory that you're
My
willing to
earliest
share.
memory, I would have been about I think probably think about where we were living, probably about 3 or 4. And I was out in
Mm-mm.
the garden with one of the dogs, and the dog did a poo, and I immediately rushed inside and I got some toilet paper, and I was chasing the dog around the garden saying, "You need to use the toilet paper." That is my earliest memory.
Mm-mm-mm-mm. And Juggler says, if you're a shark, you can discover stuff deeper than humans have. It's very true. So, yeah, I think it's just let's talk about this bringing together of circus skills and board game stuff. What is this? And you said that you're maybe having some sort of Kickstarter coming up in a wee bit. So,
Yeah,
what
so
is this all about?
we're looking for premises at the moment. We've kind of finalized it. We're sort of like in the early stages of finalizing it. So that will act as a hub. What's it's not going to be big enough to actually play board games in there, unfortunately, but that sort of premises cost far more than we can afford. So the idea is that's the shop is going to be a hub, and we're going to have like events in and around the community, which will be extremely low cost or free, so that anybody can come along. then we'll have. We've also got we've recently had the go ahead for a little mini festival on a local park where we can sort of like have circus skills and board games in a marquee. But the Kickstarter is to help us with the initial costs of setting up the shop, and then, as I say, that'll be the hub. People can come there, they can buy games, they can see what events we're going to be doing. They'll be able to buy juggling equipment there, and find out exactly where we're holding the different workshops and so on and so forth. So it's all very exciting, and it's all very lots of sort of things we wanted to throw lots of obstacles in our way, but we're gradually getting over them.
I mean, congratulations, and it is the start of something exciting, and beginning something like this, it's almost like there's infinite possibility space and it could go anywhere. And what are you hoping for from it?
So what we want to do is we want to help the community. We think that board games are amazing for, as I said earlier, are amazing for sort of like bringing people together. When somebody's socially isolated, whether it's because they're neurodivergent, or they've got learning difficulties, or just because they're new to the area and they don't know anybody, it can be difficult to sort of like make friends, particularly if you're not sort of like the type that sort of like goes to nightclubs or whatever. It can be difficult to make friends. So what we want to do is we want to make spaces where that are fully inclusive, that anybody feels welcome, everybody feels safe, where they can come together, they can make new contacts, they can learn new games, pick up a new hobby, and then the circus skills workshops are for anybody to, again, no matter what sort of challenges they face, they can do something amazing. They can learn to juggle, they can learn to stilt walk. It's something that they can feel proud of being able to do, that they didn't think they'd be able to do when they woke up that morning.
I mean, I have to admit, when he told me that you're not combining them, I was a teeny bit disappointed. I feel like it sounds like almost two separate businesses, if you know what I mean, because it sounds like you're trying to establish a community center where people can come to play board games and also on other days of the week come to learn circus skills. Is that right?
So the festival we're planning for this September, that will be very much a combination of the two. So there'll be a marquee there where people can come and play board games. There'll be circus skills workshops there and everything. Problem is, it's very difficult to actually play board games while juggling. So it's difficult to actually combine them all in one place. But the overarching theme of the company will be sort of like bringing people together through the two mediums, and it's people who like board games may like the sort of like they're very similar communities. So they're people who are very sort of like dedicated to their craft, to the games, to the juggling or whatever. So they're very similar communities. So we just feel like there's enough of a crossover there to make it work, you know.
And to blow my own trumpet, I've heard that Yogi is a game that actually goes down quite well at some juggling communities.
Mm-hmm.
So
look, there I am. That was good.
But so the Kickstarter is going to be for getting that initial first event off the ground. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah. So we're it's gonna help with actually setting up the actual hub, and then we've just heard from the local council that they've given us permission to actually operate on a local park and everything. So we're going to be looking for funds to help support that, to hire the marquee, to get a DJ in there to sort of like to get music in there. So we're in the early days of planning at the moment, but obviously anything like this, there's going to be sort of like unexpected costs and so forth. So
and then for people who donate a significant amount, I'm guessing that some of the pledge levels will, hey, in return for your contribution, in return for your donation, we'll give you some tickets. And I'm assuming that for some people, will there be like a guest of honor or something like that?
Yeah, so it goes all the way from sort of like we're having some like pin badges developed. So it goes all the way from there to right up to Phire and I coming out to wherever they are within sort of like reasonable distance. We don't want to be traveling to sort of like the very sort of like some Scottish Highlands or something sort of island, but within reasonable distance. We'll come out to them. We'll do a private juggling workshop, private board game workshop, or a combination of the two if that's what they want. We'll work with them to whatever they want to do. So yeah, so we'll also, if there's any corporate people that want to get involved as well, we'll go out and do a sort of like a team building thing, because circus skills are great for team building, and we kind of figure as well that cooperative board games as well would be absolutely brilliant for sort of like a team building type event as well. So yeah, so all the way from pin badges to we'll come out to you and we'll have a day with you and have fun.
And if some corporates people want to sponsor it to get their name on it, is that something that will be possible?
That's something we're definitely working on as well. Sort of like try and get local companies involved, because that's what we want to do. We want to make this very, very local, very community based.
And where exactly are you, just to remind people in as much detail as you're willing to share?
We are in Nottingham, just north of Nottingham city centre.
Okay, so people might know that area because the legends of Robin Hood and Sheriff of Nottingham, of course.
Yeah. And then we've got Byron as well. He's from around here. Yeah, so but Robin Hood is the one that's known everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, at the point that you get made into several films, that's pretty big.
Yeah. He's done all right for himself, hasn't he?
Was Robin Hood actually a real person?
From what I understand, he's based on sort of like, he's like an amalgamation of various different historical characters as well as folk tales and such like. So I think the Robin Hood that we know today with his sort of band of merry men didn't actually exist as a thing, but he's like a collection of ideas more than anything else.
And so I don't know if you watched the film Big Fish, but that's all about the idea that stories have value, and the shared fiction has value, and the stories don't need to be real for them to have a real impact.
Yeah, it's very much like Terry Pratchett said, is that we need the stories and the sort of like the untruths to make us able to believe the bigger untruths, like justice is a thing, Justice isn't an actual thing, but we have to believe in it for society to work.
So at this point, I've asked you lots of questions, and I would like to start coming to a close. But it's been a super lovely chat. And is there anything you would like to ask me, and potentially anyone watching this, whether live or after the fact, as the question of the day? Question of the day. It's the little question before we go on our way. Question of the day.
Question of the day. Okay, if there was only one vegetable you could eat for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that's a big question. So, like, people have asked me if I have favorites, and sometimes I go aubergine. That's pretty good. But aubergine does basically need to be fried. So, like, when we're talking vegetable, do I still get to eat leaves? Do I still get to eat spinach and watercress?
Yeah, so yeah. You can.
And are we talking culinary vegetables? Like, are cucumbers and tomatoes parts of this vegetable family?
No, they're definitely fruits. They're definitely fruits.
Okay, because my first thought was actually tomatoes, because I would be missing them a lot.
You can mix it in with
the one chosen vegetable. Okay, so I've got access to peppers because they're a fruit.
They're a fruit, yeah.
So I mean, I'm going back now to. So, like, potatoes are the instant thing that I'm thinking of, although I might, actually, my first thought was, should I go for onions, just because I would really miss onions. But then I'm thinking, you know what? All those times that people are eating potatoes, are we saying that I would still have to see other people eating it, and I just cannot eat it? Or
you just can't eat it, yeah.
Oh, like, and if I eat it, then I just burst into a ball of flames.
Just burst into, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with potato, because I think that seeing all these potatoes around me, seeing the chips, and seeing, that would make me a bit sad that I'm not able to socially eat chips anymore. Like,
I agree with that 100%, because there's just so much you can do with potatoes. It could be a different meal every day with potatoes. So yeah, I agree with that. I like that.
I mean, I've stir-fried potatoes with bits of onions and aubergines, which I'm actually now wondering, are aubergines actually technically a fruit?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
They grow above, don't they? Like, I mean, they've got the green bits. I'm assuming they grow above.
Know. We'll allow aubergines then.
But in any case, everyone out there, what would you pick? Would you pick potatoes? Would you pick something different? Let us know. And in any case, over to you, what are up to you? Can share, but if you want to, what do you need to do? What do you want to do? I need to get a bunch of rules and information written up for a game about words that rhyme with terrible rules on a line. And it's going to have 4 games for adults and maybe 2 suggestions for unimaginative parents. Because someone said, yeah, a lot of people are very unimaginative. So remind them that this is a thing that you can do, like look at the word list and do things. And just chat to your child about what these words mean, then look at the subjects and chat to them about how these 2 things interrelate and how these 2 things correspond to each other. And that itself is a nice thing, which most parents or even teachers might not have the imagination to do, sadly. But that's my big thing to do maybe in the next hour or so. I'm going to head back to London. It's been a lovely time here with the Here for Games convention, but I'm going to be heading back to London. And this week, just generally a bit of UK Games Expo preparation, a bit of preparation for my 1000th episode in just a couple of days' time. And after that, I am going to be, stopping my daily streaming. And it's difficult because I've realized that I'm starting to feel this emerging sense of loss from these daily chats, but I will hopefully have something, be able to build up a healthy habit to replace it with going gap. How do you feel about ending things? That's one thing that we mentioned that we didn't say. Are you ending anything soon? And what are you up to in general?
Um, I can't think of anything that's actually ending at the moment. It's all new beginnings. It really is with the business, um, uh, with the fostering. I'm fostering a teenager, so it's all new beginnings. And I can't, but I hate endings. I hate letting things go. I'm so nostalgic about things. I mean, I've got things that I had from a teenager, and I can't let them go. I've got books that I know I'm not going to read, but I can't let them go because again, they're connected to a time and a
Do
place.
they spark joy?
Yeah, they do.
Do you see them on the shelf, and then does your mind flit to happy times?
Yeah, definitely. It's sort of like whether it's where I read them or where I bought them. It's sort of like it's sort of yeah. They I very much enjoy the sort of like the looking at something and it taking you back in time to a place and a thing which holds happy memories.
I mean, I think that for all the people saying that Marie Kondo was a minimalist, I mean, I think that Marie Kondo is really a pragmatist and saying, hey, take stock of things. And if you've got space to have 1,000 books and that's what sparks joy for you, then great. But at a certain point, our objects become a burden. And it's important for you to make that decision.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to decide whether it's sparking joy or not. And in my case, my streams are sparking joy, but things do have to end to make space for new things.
Yeah.
And is this sparking as much joy as if I was walking out? Maybe not. I mean, I would be sad to never stream again, but I think that after a break of maybe a few weeks, maybe a month, I might do something like maybe once a week. I'll probably do something with a chat with people, but doing it every day is a bit much. And there's definitely, in the run up to episode 1,000, it's been lovely with everyone saying, oh, well, it's my last chance, I'm going to join you. But I think that there have been times in the past where it's like not that many people joining in, and it's like, why am I doing this? And there's been time. So I think that is the key question when you're ending things. Is there a reason to it? Is it sparking joy? Is it making you an income or allowing you to live or doing something that's going to spark joy? I mean, obviously, even if washing the dishes doesn't spark joy in the moment, maybe it will spark joy later on.
Yeah, that's it. So is ending this, is that going to make room for something even better in the future? Is
even if it's good, I like what you said about something even better.
Yeah.
But yes, what are you up to over the next few days?
Okay, so this afternoon I'm going out to watch the D&D movie with a whole bunch of friends, which is going to be amazing. And then it's talking with estate agents and solicitors and all the boring stuff. But I've got my first stilt walking gig for somebody else in a couple of months, and I'm really looking forward to that. We went to a juggling convention over Easter, and that was the first time I've been on the stilts since Christmas, and it just felt so good to be back up there again. So I'm really looking forward to doing this gig in a few weeks' time.
Well, it's been such a lovely chat, and I would like to recap and wrap up before we finish up. So to recap and wrap up, we mentioned Phire and Bermuda Pirates and Hansa Teutonica and Deer and Ducklings, and taking stock of nature, we talked about Teotihuacan and having a bit of luck, because sometimes your strategy works well for one situation, sometimes it doesn't, and it's all about that chaos. We talked about just taking stock and enjoying the life, loving how music can spark so many emotions. We mentioned Lady Bree making a move. We talked about the Lumineers. We talked about whether you focus on albums or individual songs, having the joy, the cozy fantasy, as you called it, of Cerulean Sea, focusing on things in a sequential way, whether that's photography, 3D modeling, dancing like nobody's watching, LARP, or world building. We talked about how this slight escapism is required. We need stories. We talked about love for flying, but of course, if you had a month of being able to swim to the deepest depths, then maybe you would take that over a day as a pigeon. We talked about self care and how it correlates to helping other folk. And generally, when we're thinking about letting go of stuff, it's about sparking joy and can letting go of this make way for new things. And of course, we also talked about the exciting new thing that's going on, which is Dice and Balls, and how there's going to be a convention in September. So if you're in Nottingham, or if you're able to get to Nottingham easily, then definitely check that out. And share, spread the word. Thank you very much, everyone. If you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez in all of the places. And stuffbybez.com/dreams. Well, it'll tell you that tomorrow I'm having one chat with Alan Paul, and then in 2 days' time, I am going to be chatting to Rita Modal, Kirsten Lunzer, Ryan Estrada, Glenn Ford, Jessica Medringham, Alan Paul, Joe Kelly, Kenichugu Ogbuagu, Chris and Suzanne Zinsley, Tori Brown, Kathleen Mercury, Natalia Pizar, Kristen and Andy Looney, Ellie Dix, Anya Coombs, Eric Lang, Eric Royce, Amabel Holland, and Elizabeth Hargrave. And we'll talk about all sorts of things, with basically a new person popping in every 20 minutes until we wind down and I say a final farewell for a few weeks. So if you would like to check out Zoe, where would you like people to check you out?
So if you go to our website, which is diceandballs.co.uk, as soon as the Kickstarter is live, we'll be announcing that there. And any other news that with the premises and everything, that will be on there as well.
Well, thank you so much for this lovely chat, Zoe.
Thank
and
you
the
for
only
having
thing
me.
left for me to say is, of course, lots of love and bye, bye,
Take
bye,
care.
bye.
Bye.
This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching
Ta-ra,
along.
bits.
Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. Now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thanks for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, bye, bye,
See
bye.
ya.
And now it's time to go.
Take care.
Bye, bye.